Hello there YouTube, it's Zach with Clash of Comics, where all panels are created equal. I just want to say thanks again for coming out to my video. I really appreciate that. The support I got on the last video was actually kind of insane. We hit over 1,000 views rather, and then over 230 likes I believe, and quite a lot of interaction, and that is all you guys. I really appreciate that. I did not expect that. But with that, I just want to say let's get started. So we're going to go into comic book starting points. I'm going to primarily focus on Marvel and DC just because their history is a lot harder to get into and to find a starting point for. But I'm going to make it in an easy, user-friendly way for you guys so that you can get interested in comics just like I did. With that, once again, thanks, and let's get started. Okay, and I just want to give you guys a little disclaimer at the beginning of the video. This is actually a really long video, and it's not necessarily that I want you guys to listen to everything, so I'm going to put in the description timestamps for you guys to skip to if you guys don't want to watch the whole video for all these characters. It's really not necessary. Just pick the ones that you're interested in. And then also I just want to say, drop in the comments below characters that you would like to get starting points from, and I'll try to include those in some future videos, or maybe do another video where I do some more characters for you guys. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, so just to start out this video, I want to do just a rundown of how comic books are normally structured. As you guys know, just like in manga, there is issues as opposed to chapters. Same thing relatively, just one part of the book that you read, and it is usually about 15 to 20 pages. It just depends on the comic book. But based on that, what you want to do is there will be volumes that usually collect a certain amount of issues. So let's say that you're reading volume 1 of Flash, and that collects issues 121 to 137. Basically, you can either read the volume if it's collected in what's called a trade or in a volume, like I said, or you can read those issues in the actual run. So you would want to look for the Flash run from 1960, whatever. It depends on what run you're looking at, but you look at that run, you read those issues, and that's the run by that author. So in this video, I'll be saying read this volume or read these issues. You're gonna want to look for that issue. Sometimes it will be collected, and then sometimes it'll just be in those issues. As far as if you guys have any questions about that, or if you are confused on where you should start or read, just hit me up on Twitter, like I've told you guys before. Wally's R34, so WALLYS R34, and DM me and I'll help you out with whatever you need. If I haven't read it, I can definitely have someone that has, or I will be able to figure it out for you. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can hit me up for sure. But anyway, I'll get this video started. Thanks. Spider-Man is expansive history. It's been around for a long time, but what I suggest doing is starting out with Ultimate Spider-Man. I mentioned it in my last video. Ultimate Spider-Man is a one cohesive run that's not necessarily 100% canon. It doesn't become canon until Miles Morales is introduced. His portion is canon because he becomes part of the main 616 universe. That basically what Ultimate Spider-Man is. It's one cohesive run that goes through a lot of the Spider-Man mythos. Little changes here and there, but it is largely the same, and it will give you kind of a fast track to Peter Parker as a character and a lot of the interactions and dynamics that he has with other characters, including villains, Mary Jane, his Aunt May, Jonah Jameson, those types of characters, and also just gives you a sneak peek into what it's like for Peter in his verse. That's where I suggest to start. Once you do that, you can pretty much hop into most Spider-Man runs, starting at volume 1, and you'll be able to keep up and understand what's happening and understand the dynamic between characters. So that's what I definitely suggest starting. The next run I would suggest to get into is Straczynski's run. That's kind of one of the best Spider-Man runs. He really gave Peter life and put a lot into the character, so that's where I suggest a lot of people start. Once you start there, you can definitely go into the link in the description, and it will have the full Spider-Man reading order, and then you can just continue from there. I'll link that for you guys. If you're looking for, I know a lot of people are interested in Superior Spider-Man, which is a storyline where Dr. Octopus basically takes over Peter's body and becomes Spider-Man for a while. What you're going to want to do is read Dan Slott's run, which I'm not a huge fan of the run, but it does set up a lot of things that you need for Superior Spider-Man, including the introduction of Horizon Labs and where Peter's at currently in life and how everybody views him. So that's definitely important. I would suggest for that run, you're going to read volumes 1 to 2 and then the Spider Island storyline. And then after that, you're going to read The Amazing Spider-Man issues 698 through 700, that basically shows you how Dr. Octopus becomes Peter. And then after that, you can get into Superior Spider-Man. Once you do that, you can read the whole Superior Spider-Man run and with no issues and comprehend everything that happened. It's a great run. I really love it. It's an interesting, unique story that I think a lot of comic books, this is the best part about comic books. You can get all these unique stories in one run that you wouldn't normally see, and that's kind of my suggestion for Spider-Man. Also, I just want to offer 2 other stories that are self-contained that you can also read that are interesting. I would say Spider-Man Life Story and Spider-Man Blue. Those are Life Story basically goes through all the history of Spider-Man on a short one shot. You can read that and kind of get just a quick little story that gives you everything you need for Peter's life and what his history in the comics so far. That's definitely an interesting one. And Blue is also just a really good storyline, so that's what I suggest to read if you guys are interested. Spider-Man 2099 is also interesting if you guys have heard of that. It's set in the future, basically what the Marvel Universe would be like in the distant future. So there's also like Doom 2099 and different runs that connect to it, but Miguel is a different Spider-Man, but he's also very fun. He's different from Peter Parker, and that's what kind of makes the run very fun to read. I'm currently in the beginning. It's written by Peter David. It's a little bit more retro, but it's definitely fun to read. Now, for the GOAT, Dr. Doom, one of the best villains in fiction in my opinion, and definitely one of the best in Marvel. For him, what you want to read is Books of Doom. That basically gives you a introduction to the character and his origin and how he became the person that he is today. As far as Doom goes, I'll drop a full link in the description. A lot of his biggest storylines come from Fantastic Four and with the Avengers, but what I suggest is reading the full Hickman Secret War run. And to do that, what you would want to do is after Books of Doom, go into what's called Triumph and Torment. It's an older run. It's basically him and Doctor Strange. They go to what's called basically hell, and Doctor Doom basically tricks Doctor Strange into going, and there's a whole plot line that goes into that, but it's very important because it sets kind of the dynamic between Doctor Doom and his views, as well as his dynamic with Doctor Strange. After that, you would want to read Secret Wars 1984, which not everybody's a fan of Secret Wars because I mean it originally was made to sell toys. It's kind of like the purpose of it in the beginning, but in my opinion, it gives some of the best character development for Doom and kind of gives you an idea of how he sees the world and just how he sees life in general. After that, you would want to continue into Hickman's Fantastic Four, which Hickman's Fantastic Four I'll talk about in a little bit, but it's such a great run, amazing, one of the best comics ever. Please read that. And then after that, you would go into Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. And then once you finish that, then I'll give you a full reading order for that as well in the description. And you can get into Secret Wars 2015, which is peak fiction. Please read, please. Whatever you do, please read that, please. Now we're going to get into one of my favorite Marvel heroes. His name is Daredevil. I'm sure you guys are aware of him. He has a great show on Netflix. In my opinion, the best superhero adaptation in media, in my opinion, as far as live action goes. What you're going to want to do with that, you're going to start with Man Without Fear, which is a 1993 run by Frank Miller. Frank Miller kind of really wrote the modern origin for Daredevil and what people recognize as his real origin story. After that, you can continue Frank Miller's Daredevil. It has a few volumes that you can read. A little bit older art, but it is pretty cool. It's not for everybody, but I've read the first 2 volumes and it's really fun. After that, you would want to go into Bendis Daredevil. Bendis Daredevil is a really, really fun, interesting, cohesive run. It gives you a lot of character development for Matt. It shows you him as a lawyer as well as Daredevil and his struggles with going through both. And I really enjoyed that run. I read it recently and it's a 10 out of 10 the whole way through. And it's got some really unique, interesting art. I don't know if it's my favorite Daredevil art, but it's definitely unique and it fits the aesthetic that they were going for with the run. After that, you would continue into Wade's Daredevil, which is what I'm actually reading right now. Wade's Daredevil is so far my favorite. It's so much fun. The art is amazing. There's characters that they bring in that really drive the plot, and you just get to see a lot of cool storytelling. After that, you would want to go into Charles Soule's Daredevil. That one's a few volumes as well. Pretty much every Daredevil run is just really, really good. So I can't fault you for starting at either or. Just make sure you start with that at Man Without Fear, because that gives you the origin that you're looking for, and it's just a really good comic in general. And then after that, you would want to go into the current run, which is Zdarsky's. I hope I'm saying that right, but that's going to be another continuance into the run. I'll put a link in the description so it lists all of the different runs that you can get into for him, but those would be my main suggestions. You can also read Daredevil Yellow. It's a side story, not necessarily in any order in the main canon, but you can definitely read. So now we're going to continue with Marvel. I'm going to go into the X-Men starting point. There's a couple different starting points that you can get into for X-Men. It's completely up to you. I suggest what you first read is like Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men. Ultimate X-Men is going to give you a basis for a lot of the characters and some of the origins that you would need, so you can understand the characters and the dynamics between them. I would suggest the first 3 to 5 volumes at least, because the first 3 to 5 volumes kind of give you the basis that you need and some pretty cool storylines to read for everything you would need to hop into newer X-Men runs. If you want to start from the beginning, if you would like, are you that type of person? You don't necessarily have to do this, but you would want to start at the Chris Claremont era, which has been around for a long time. It's kind of like the X-Men run that really put it on the map, and that would be starting at Giant Size X-Men number 1, and then going into Uncanny X-Men Masterworks, which is volumes 1 through 12. And then I'll once again put the link in the description so you can see a full reading order of X-Men, and then just continue from there. You can also start, which is what I kind of did, is I just hopped into Hickman's X-Men run, which I talked about Hickman in my last video. He's a legendary writer, my favorite comic book writer in the modern era, and he's kind of reworking the whole mythos and making X-Men something that we really wanted for a long time. And basically the basis of his run is what he's doing is the X-Men have kind of broken off from humanity as a whole. They're tired of being treated differently because of their genes and their superpowers, so they choose to become their own sovereign nation. And it's not only an X-Men story, but it goes into how a sovereign nation would be created and the things they would have to do to build up to that. They have to create a government, they have to create a CIA, they have to create allies, they have to work with other countries. It's a super fun run. Where you want to start with that is House and Powers of X. There's actually a reading order that I'll drop down below that you have to follow, because House and Powers kind of go together, and you have to read certain issues before others so you can get the full story. That is a really good run. I love everything about that run. Once you finish that, then you're going to go into Dawn of X, which is actually about 15 volumes, I believe, and then you would go into X of Swords, and it continues after that. Once again, I'm going to drop the link in the description so you guys can just follow that, but I really suggest Hickman's run. It's such a fun run. It's amazing. It's one of the best things in comics right now, if not the best, and some of the best things I've ever read from Marvel. So if you guys are interested, X-Men is definitely something I suggest, especially Hickman's run. And then if you guys get interested, you can always go back to Claremont's run and read all the old X-Men, and that's always fun too. Hickman gives you pretty much everything you need, so you don't have to read all of the X-Men history. He does a lot of like exposition after chapters and before, so you can kind of get a rundown on what you actually need to know for his run. But yeah, that's basically what my suggestion is for X-Men. It's a great run, and yeah. Okay, now I'm going to give you the reading order for Thor. I'm sure a lot of people are interested in Thor, and I would like to say, as far as mythology-based characters, I think Thor is my favorite in comics. He's got some of the funnest things to read, and it's just really enjoyable to get into his mythos and the history of Asgard and everything about him. What I suggest is starting with Jason Aaron's run. It's, in my opinion, the best Thor run. It starts at Thor God of Thunder, 2012. It's 3 volumes, so you're going to want to read those. And then after finish that, you're going to want to go into Original Sin. That's a storyline that isn't necessarily a Thor story, but it is relevant to Jason Aaron's Thor run, and you do want to read that. And then after you finish the first 5 issues of that, then you're going to read Thor and Loki by Jason Aaron, and then continue to Original Sin 6 through 8. After that, you would want to go into the 2014 run of Thor. This is when Jane Foster is introduced, and it kind of gives her storyline, and in my opinion, her inclusion into the Thor mythos is very important, and it actually makes Thor a better Thor. And to me, it's the Thor run. I'm also going to put a link in the description so you can continue, because honestly, Thor has been solid for quite a long time, since Jason Aaron really started. I currently keep up with Thor. It's one of the only comics I really kept up with over the years for a long time, and I really suggest everyone gets into that. Once again, the link in the description will give you the full reading order, but just start where I said and you'll be golden. You'll love it. So now moving into DC comics, which are what I prefer. I want to say that between DC and Marvel, I don't think that one is necessarily better than the other. They both are really good at telling stories and giving a great experience while reading. I just prefer DC characters. So as you guys, I'm sure a lot of you guys know, my favorite character is Wally West. A lot of my favorite characters come from DC, like Superman, Batman, Hal Jordan, Kal Rayner as Green Lantern, Wonder Woman. All those characters are great, and I just really suggest you hopping into DC if you're interested. But let's start out with Superman. Superman, what you're going to want to start out with is Superman Birthright by Mark Waid. That gives you a little bit of an origin for Superman, and Mark Waid is one of my favorite writers as well. He's just great at expanding on powers and kind of giving characters a theme and pushing that through into their storytelling. After you complete that, then you're going to want to read Superman Secret Origin by Jeff Johns. That's going to be a different origin, but it's a good run, really interesting and fun to read. And then you would want to go into Superman and the Legion of Superheroes, also by Jeff Johns. After you finish that, you would want to go into Superman Brainiac by Jeff Johns. And then once you finish that, then you would go into Superman New Krypton by James Dale Robinson and Jeff Johns. And then you would continue into Rebirth. And once again, I'll drop the link in the description so you guys can see the full reading order, and then go from there and continue. Superman, though, I do want to put a disclaimer. I know a lot of people think that Superman is boring, but the problem is that in modern media, not even just the live actions, but even in Justice League and his own TV show, he doesn't get the best portrayal. Superman's strength is not in being a big, strong character that's able to fight and beat everyone. A lot of it comes from the human side, because he was raised as a regular dude from Kansas in the Midwest, just a normal American person, that he has to struggle with having these powers and being able to control them and not lose control. And he's such a great character. I think if you guys can, please try to give him a shot. It's worth it, I promise you. So once again, just follow this reading order and you'll definitely be able to get into the character. Okay, so now starting on Batman. A lot of people love Batman because he's gotten a really good portrayal in live action and in the animated series. But for comic books, what I suggest is, if you've never read a Batman comic, I definitely suggest reading The Killing Joke. Killing Joke is a story between the Batman and Joker, and it kind of sets up a lot of future development for the relationship between Bruce and the Joker, or Batman and the Joker, and it's just a really fun story. Another optional thing you can read is called Three Jokers. I don't suggest reading that one until you've read a good amount of Batman, so at least the next run I would maybe gonna suggest would be New 52 Batman. So Three Jokers kind of has some dynamics between characters that kind of have a little bit of history that people generally know, but they don't have 100% accuracy on. So that's basically my suggestion. New 52 Batman, though, please read that. New 52 Batman, in my opinion, is the best Batman run. And then I'll drop the link in the description so you can have a full reading order for Batman, and then you can continue into Rebirth and things like that after. But yeah, that would be my suggestion. Okay, and so for one of my favorite power sets and favorite heroes, just the hero itself, we're going to talk about Flash. So there's two different main Flashes. There's the one most people know, which is Barry Allen. He's been the Flash since Silver Age, and then he had a time where he wasn't in the comics because he died, which he obviously didn't die, but it was kind of just part of Crisis on Infinite Earths and part of that storyline. If you guys are interested, you can definitely peep into that. It's one of the most iconic runs of all time. I don't think it's one of the best writing wise, but it's definitely important to the DC verse, and it's definitely something you should peep if you're interested in DC Comics as a whole. But starting with Barry Allen, you're going to want to read Year One Flash, which is Williamson's run, issues 70 through 75. If you're looking for it online, they usually have it collected because it does have its own book just called Year One. It's really cool little origin for Barry that you can definitely get into. And then after that, you would want to go into Rebirth, which is issues 1 through 6 by Jeff Johns. And then after that, you would want to go into the regular Flash volumes by Jeff Johns, which is 2, 1 through 2, and then after that go into Flashpoint. Once again, I'm going to drop a full link in the description for Barry Allen so that you can just kind of go through his whole comic history. It'll also have just a general Flash reading order. I'm going to go into Wally West now. Now, Wally West is my favorite Flash. He is my favorite comic book character in general. He's just really, really good, and he's a legacy character. Basically what that means, he took over the mantle of his prior mentors held before him. So Barry Allen was the Flash. Something happened, which I kind of explained earlier with Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then basically Wally took up the helm because he felt that he needed to. Someone had to be the Flash, and this is what I would suggest reading, just because I love Wally West so much and he is so much in his character to bring to the table. You're going to want to read Mark Waid's Flash books 1 through 6, and then continue into The Flash by Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison is also a great writer. I'm sure you guys have heard of him. That dude is one of the most insanely great writers and personalities I've ever heard in my life, but he's definitely someone I would suggest looking into him if you guys are interested in just comic book writers in general. Dude's a very interesting personality. After you finish his run, then you would want to go into Mark Waid's book 7, and then Mark Waid's Flash 1987 1 through 51 through 160, because they have not collected that into a book yet. And then The Flash by Jeff Johns, books 1 through 5. That's going to be Wally West's reading order. Remember, he's the best comic book character. I don't care what anybody says. If they say different, they're lying to you. So now I'm just going to give you a short list for Justice League if you guys are interested in Justice League runs. Justice League, it's a little different because these are team books, so I mean, if you have basics for the characters, you can definitely hop into most of the runs starting at volume 1 and be able to understand what's going on. Like the other ones, I'll drop a link in the description, but my 3 suggestions for runs for those would be Justice League Association by Grant Morrison and Mark Waid. That's going to be volumes 1 through 3. And then New 52 Justice League by Jeff Johns is also another one that you would want to hop into. That's a great run that you can read. Jeff Johns, as you've heard him before, he's a good writer. Not a fan of him on a personal level, but he's a great writer, and it's definitely something you guys should get into. The third run I would suggest would be Justice League by Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder wrote New 52 Batman, Death Metal, and a lot of big things in DC that are really well written, so I suggest reading that as well. That's going to be my final suggestion, and then once again, I'm just going to drop that link in the description so you guys can get a link to all the Justice League comics. Kind of go from there if you would like. So I just want to do another team book, and that's going to be for Teen Titan. Teen Titans, the older runs are, in my opinion, the better ones, but this is a great starting point if you're looking for a modern story taking place closer to the current events. You're going to want to start with Jeff Johns' Teen Titans, which takes place in 2011. In the description below, I'm going to drop the link for the full reading order, so if you want to go back and read the older comics, you definitely can do that. But yeah, this run has a lot of the more recent Teen Titans members. So for Diana Prince, or Wonder Woman, this is actually one of my favorite female characters in DC. She's really great and it's fun to read about. She's another mythology-based character similar to Thor. She basically has one run that really is from 1986 that really gives her a good basis for her character and kind of gives you an idea of what Wonder Woman comics are about. That run is going to be by George Perez, and you read that and then you can hop into other runs if you would like, but I'll drop a full reading order in the description for you guys so that if you guys want to get the full experience of the character, you can just peep that if you're interested. Okay, so aside from DC and Marvel, I just wanted to give some indie recommendations, which I kind of mentioned in my last video. Indies are structured similar to manga, where basically they're one cohesive story that's written by one person, and they give you a great story for you to get into without having to read a bunch of different ones to tie into it. So my first suggestion for indie comics was East of West. East of West was a story that I read. It has really good world building and a lot of political storytelling within it, and it also has a lot of cool action, kind of like a Wild West type feel to it, while being in a modern type setting with a Wild West. That's kind of the best way I can explain it. It's written by Hickman, which is, I've mentioned him multiple times before now. He's a great writer, and it's one cohesive run that you can read. It's only 45 issues, I believe, and you read that and it gives you the full story. Another one I would suggest is going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm sure a lot of you have watched the show growing up, and it's really a fun run. I haven't read it myself, but I've heard nothing but good things about it, and it is the TMT run. It's going to be the IDW run. The only thing I was told as a suggestion on that is to read all the tie-ins, because they are important, and to make sure you read all of them because they do tie into everything else that happened. Another suggestion I have is going to be called Something is Killing the Children. That's going to be a core comic, kind of like a feel, kind of like Stranger Things. If you guys have peeped that, it's like there's like monsters and they're eating people and those types of things. So that's definitely something you could get into if you're interested in that. My next suggestion would be Black Science. Black Science is about a group of scientists that basically have figured out a way into an alternate reality, and it goes into a lot of philosophical questions, and it makes big brain stuff, definitely stuff that you would be interested in if you're interested in philosophy and those kinds of things. Another one would be Deadly Class. Deadly Class I haven't read yet either, but a lot of people have told me that it's really good. Deadly Class is about kids that are shipped off to be trained as assassins, and they learn to how to do that at that school. That's definitely something you guys should get into if you're interested. My next suggestion would be Walking Dead. I'm going to be reading Walking Dead really soon, but I enjoyed the first few seasons of the TV show, and I've heard that it's way better than the TV show. It's if you're a manga fan, it's actually written or drawn in black and white. So if you like that aesthetic, it's definitely something you can get into. It's in color too, but it's not completely done yet. I believe they're still coloring parts of it. So that's definitely something you can get into. And the last thing I'm going to give you guys is for Power Rangers. Power Rangers, if you were a fan of the show as a kid, it's definitely something you might be interested in. For that, you're going to want to read Go-Go Power Rangers issues 1 through 7, and then go into Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 0 through 23. And then I'll give you a full reading order for Power Rangers in the description so that you guys can hop into that and read all of the stories if you're interested. But yeah, those are going to be my recommendation for the indies. Yeah, hope you guys enjoy them. Okay, and that's just going to go ahead and wrap up the rest of that video. I just want to say once again, I'm insanely grateful for everything you guys did, because the interaction I received on my first video was kind of crazy to me. It just really showed me how much you guys really support me, and I just really appreciate that. And I want to shout out some people that have helped me. Sin, for one, as I kind of mentioned earlier in the video, he helped me kind of push over that 200 limit. And then I just want to name some of the people on Twitter that kind of helped me out, at retro_1999. A lot of the reading orders I got for this video are from him. If you're looking for someone on comic books to help you, he's definitely one of the other people that I would suggest. Some of the group chats that helped me as well. So the Cult of Wally West, they've always supported me. Gotham Knights Incorporated, the Void Pirates, which I've had that group chat for like 2 years now, and they've always supported me. And Nick actually just paid for my YouTube avatar that I'm going to be putting on this channel, so I want to thank him as well. And then Unknowns and the Chainsaw Man Hive, all of them have been really supportive of me and what I'm trying to do. And that's pretty much all I want to say. Thank you guys so much. This is Clash of Comics with Zach, where all panels are created equal. Please like and subscribe. You guys interacted on the last video. I don't even feel like I have to do it, but I'm just going to do it. Thank you guys for your support. Have a great day and a great rest of your week.